Welcome to the Zachrilege Cast podcast, YouTube video interview program that features me talking to some of the best and brightest in the atheist/secular/awesome community. This is episode number 159. I'm going to pull a Noah and say that it's September 11th, 2018. I will thank Felicia and Whistle of Utah Outcasts, my previous guest, properly on the full episode this week, 160, that I will record in a couple of days. It's going to be conspiracy-licious. I'm going to call this a mini-sode because unless I ramble on to a seriously self-serving level, we'll get out of here in less than 15 minutes. Tonight, I will share a personal journey. I am going to read from an article that was published in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution on January 14th, 2018, and I will include the link. Oh, I wrote the article. In the fall of 2017, I took a spoken word class with my beloved... In the fall of 2017, 321, in the fall of 2017, I took a spoken word class with my beyond lovely wife, Allison Law. You were supposed to conclude the class by telling a relatively short story from your life. It could be funny, sad, moving, just something that happened to you. I told my story of 9/11. The storytelling format fit me well because you don't memorize what you're going to say, but you do have beats in a story that can be different every time you tell it that way. My beats were simple. We're going to go with those simple parts in a second about a day that we wanted really badly to start normally and, as most people remember, didn't. So it's nice to be in a place where I can recover, where my family and friends who are there for me are still in my life. Some aren't. This event happened 17 years ago to me, and 9/11 happened for all of us. We will never be the same. Back to normal. Let's do something normal today. My mom says this while reaching for a television remote. I lie back on the hospital bed. Normal is a fuzzy concept. For my mother, normal for the past month has been swapping shifts at the hospital with my father and sleeping on a couch in the ICU in Emory University Hospital. For me, it has been lying in a hospital bed in a medically induced coma. Next to the remote is a disposable container of cranberry juice. I sip the tart liquid. There's a juice fridge for my parents to raid. The last choice is always cranberry. The medical personnel frown on me drinking water because I need calories. The feeding tube diet has failed to do much more than keep me alive. I smirk as I sip because why not have a ridiculous expression on my face while I sit half naked in a sterile room trying to understand what happened to me while I was unconscious for the past 3 weeks. My room is not perfectly sterile. The scent of dried sweat permeates the room. My last sponge bath was a couple of days ago, and the previous night I sweated through my sheets multiple times due to the crazy dreams. They are a side effect of the meds I'm given to bring me out of the coma. I'm not yet stable enough to take the 5 steps it would require to use the shower. Being awake during normal daytime hours still takes some getting used to. My dreams take place in a familiar setting. Lying on my back, I can see the whiteboard in front of me. In the real world, this whiteboard contains important details like the name of the nurse on call and the occasional smiley face. In my dreams, it has different uses. Writing appears on it, put there by an unseen hand, scribbling so fast my mind can't process it. I communicate with this new unseen friend through the board, chatting back and forth telepathically because we're that close. Who else could understand what I'm going through? We have a bond unlike any other relationship in my life. The TV in my room is on a lot during these dream sessions. I watch a football game on ESPN, but when players crash into each other, body parts fly off. One time, a nurse enters my dark room and administers a shot. Suddenly, I am paralyzed and can't breathe. The room gets colder. She leans in and stares at me like a cat challenging me to a blinking contest. "If you tell your parents, I'll kill you," she whispers. She administers another shot, and a few seconds later, I can breathe again. My parents don't understand why I'm not nice to this nurse. Let's do something normal today. My mom clicks on the television. we watch a plane fly into a building. 2. How did I get here? My problems started in July 2001 on a weekend visit to South Carolina, where I stayed in the dirtiest apartment I've ever seen. I was 27 years old and living in a condo in Doraville with my roommate Carol and her cat Melanie June. I worked as a technical writer at IBM and socialized with a group called the Atlanta Newcomers, although I had been living in the city since the Summer Olympics in 1996. The group met once a week and hosted social events like beach volleyball and a scavenger hunt in Buckhead, back when that part of town was nothing but bars and clubs. I had been seeing a woman named Gina for 9 months. Although she lived in Atlanta, she still rented an apartment above a garage in Columbia, South Carolina. That's where we stayed for a weekend while visiting her family, and it was filthy. Tumbleweeds of dust and dirt skidded across the floor. 6-month-old milk curled in the fridge. The bed sheets hadn't been laundered since the previous presidential administration. I woke up one morning with a big pimple in my right hip. I forgot about the blemish until early August when my back started to hurt. At first, it was minor pain and inconvenience, but by mid-August I was bedridden by a pain that started in my left leg and radiated up to my lower back. I knew I was in trouble when I began to have trouble breathing. I contacted my employer and requested to go on short-term disability. The following day, Gina took me to the Emory University Hospital emergency room. My parents came down that night from Nashville. They didn't leave until 2 months later. An X-ray revealed that I had pneumonia in both lungs and a blood clot had formed in my left leg. Pieces of it had lodged in my lungs. A blood test showed the presence of Staphylococcus, a bacteria that had pooled in an abscess in my spine. I remember lying in a hospital bed, a surgery release in form in front of me. "I didn't know it was that bad," I said. Those are my last words before I was put into a medically induced coma. I am the unreliable narrator. The story of what came next was told to me by friends and family who were there. The surgeon drained and removed the abscess, and I began undergoing a regimen of antibiotics. My breathing didn't improve, so instead of being intubated, I got a tracheostomy. A hole was cut into my windpipe, and I was attached to a ventilator that breathed for me. I got my nutrition through an IV. Once the infection was gone, doctors went after the blood clot with a cocktail of chemicals. I was totally dependent on others. There were countless doctors, nurses, and hospital staff who tended to me. My parents camped out in the room next to the ICU. Friends and family filtered in and out. In September, 3 weeks later, it was time for me to wake up. Getting me out of the coma might have been more difficult than putting me under. It took several days to wean me from the Ativan that kept me unconscious. Eventually, I got to resume a normal diet and was moved into a regular hospital room. My best friend from college visited and promised that when he got married in April, I'd dance at his wedding. 3. You've endured the worst. These days, I tend to keep my emotions buttoned up inside. I have to work at loosening up and in reacting appropriately to the ebb and flow of daily life. I think it's a reaction to my trauma when my emotions were out of my control. I first noticed it in the hospital when I discovered the portable CD player in my nightstand drawer, right below the stash of Boost I was supposed to drink to increase my calorie intake. It tasted like liquid chalk. The singer was Jim Cuddy, a Canadian folk artist who has my favorite male singing voice of all time. As I heard the first few chords of the opening song of his debut album, Second Son, I lost control. I cried like all the pain and sorrow of my life was a giant wave crashing over me. I'd cry when I heard music in the commercial. I woke up from nightmares with tear-streaked cheeks. I cried when I got another container of cranberry juice. Not really, but I wanted to. When the first building crashes to the ground, I don't think I'm watching a lot of people die. It's like I feel it. I sense a psychic connection to all that life as it's lost. I asked my dad to turn off the television. Appointments at Emory University Hospital go as planned that day, national tragedy or no. The first appointment is for my pill, a blood thinner called Coumadin. Then an orderly pushes my wheelchair to the radiology department. He is the talkative sort. As we traverse the hallways of the hospital, he talks excitedly about planes flying over from Europe that are going to be shot down. I'm glad that I'm out of it. Radiology is cold. Whoever came up with warm blankets for that room is a certified genius. I am as comfortable as can be for someone about to get a catheter inserted into my heart. We listen to the radio. The hosts discuss school closings and the dawn of a new world. I can't control what's happening in the world any more than I can control what's happening to my body, so I say encouraging words to the people trying to help me get better. In my corner of the world, people are a little nicer to each other that day as we feel dread and foreboding for tomorrow. Who remembers September 12th, 2001? I do. It's the first time I go outdoors in 4 weeks. I head outside on the sunny campus of Emory University, where students do what students do, albeit one day after a shared national trauma. We note the lack of air traffic. My friend Don Funk pushes the wheelchair. Don is part of my fantasy football league. During my hospitalization, my friends bring the championship trophy I earned the previous football season into my room to cheer me up. I receive a constant crush of friends and family. Someone brings in a composition book and keeps it for people to write in it while I am out of it. The name on the book is Get Well, Zach, and the school is your ICU fan club. The notes my friends and family wrote do the job in cheering me up. What's up with you missing football? Ditka would play with a ventilator. What's your problem? Paul. I am still working on the Funk Fest beer supply and hoping you show up to help me finish it. Don. Today is Daddy's birthday. He's happy because you're getting better. They are reducing the sedatives that have kept you in dreamland for the last 2.5 weeks. Now you move around and open your eyes, but you're not quite awake. I know you hear our voice, but you probably will not remember any of this. We love you, Mom. You were the first patient that I ever saw at Emory Hospital as a physician. It was about 5 a.m. and I was told by my colleague that I should see you first because you were a little unstable. It has been one of the most gratifying experiences to watch you recover from a semi-comatose state where a machine took every breath for you. Monitoring your progress has been very rewarding. Also, I enjoyed greatly developing such a deep bond with your family and friends. You have surrounded yourself with wonderful people, and that makes all the difference, Zach. I know that there will be many times you will be scared over the next several months, but just remember that you've endured the worst and your perspective can make you a better, more compassionate person. Take care of yourself. Dr. David Honeycutt. 4. New beginning. What's it like to be born again? Well, it's not like being washed clean of my sins or any other such notion. In the futuristic novel Walk Away by Cory Doctorow, technology allows people to get their personalities uploaded into a computer before they die, which kind of gives them immortality. Kind of. The computer personality isn't exactly the same person who lived as flesh and blood. It is an approximation, and this new version of the person has no memory of his or her physical death. I have memories from before the hospitalization, but they feel like they belong to a different person. I didn't experience a magical, perfect for a TED Talk kind of transformation. I am just different. Physically, I am changed. I can't feel the back of my left leg from the waist to my toes. I'll always have more muscle definition in my right leg than my left. Despite that, I started an exercise regimen shortly after leaving the hospital, and I still work out every day. Emotionally, I'm a more empathetic person than I used to be. I may not feel your pain, but I know what pain feels like. I returned to my condo on September 18th. There was a giant pile of mail, including letters wishing me well and 4 unopened Netflix DVDs. I had a brand new PlayStation I had purchased before going into the hospital and had never played it. I finally got to sleep in my own bed. My parents moved in to help me with their recovery. A home nurse showed my mom how to mix and administer my antibiotics. I slept a lot and took slow walks around the apartment complex. I happily consumed a daily milkshake at 3 p.m. Thanks to Brewster's, I gained 40 pounds in 2 months. The antibiotic killed the infection, but it also killed my red blood cells. My anemia became so severe, I received a transfusion of 4 pints of blood, but even that didn't do the trick. I had to undergo twice daily shots to the stomach of Epogen, the drug Tour de France cyclists used to cheat. The nurse told me this, and it's my story, so I'm sticking to it. It worked, and I began to relax, glad the shots to the stomach were over, but then the blood thinners I was taking failed to work, so it was back to twice daily shots to the stomach, this time of a drug called Lovenox, for 6 months. What is it like to stab yourself in the stomach? It's pretty much what you think. Humans can get used to almost anything. It was a lot like my mom trying to teach me how to dive into the pool for the first time. I got to regress again. After a while, it got to be like exercise, much more enjoyable once it was over. A couple weeks later, I was well enough to kick my parents out of my apartment. 5. What doesn't kill you? Several months after leaving the hospital for the last time, I started seeing a therapist. At the time, she said there would be a day when I wouldn't think about my ordeal. And I LOL'd. People LOL'd in 2002. Then one day it happened. For 24 hours, I didn't think about the nurse who came by almost every day to draw blood, the beeping sounds of the machines that kept me alive in the ICU, doctors I didn't recognize telling me the story of my past few weeks, wondering if I was brought back from the brink just to die anyway, devastating my parents and friends as I slipped away into nothingness. It happened, so now I know it's true. It's possible to get over just about anything that fails to kill you. In April 2002, I didn't trust my stamina, but I walked a mile into the Grand Canyon National Park with some friends. I thought the walk back up would be harder. Instead, it was exhilarating. Later, the party moved to the resort outside of Phoenix. I had drinks by the pool and talked to friends I hadn't seen in years, or in some cases, friends who had seen me, but not vice versa. My best friend stepped on the glass, and it was official. I got on stage and delivered the best man speech. I don't remember a word of what I said, but I remember the dancing. We held up the chairs with the happy couple during the hora. My parents were there to witness the spectacle, their son dancing at his best friend's wedding, just acting normal. I thought I'd do a little tiny bit of behind the scenes, and then we'll call it a night. So the spoken word class was 6 weeks in the fall of 2017. I met Suzanne, the editor, at a Mexican restaurant, as strangely enough, we both work for Cox Communications since they own the AJC, and I work there as an email marketing manager. The Personal Journey series has had a lot of New York Times best-selling authors, including our good friend Joshua Jackson, so I had a shit ton of imposter syndrome while doing this. The timing was good because I am distant from the event, and I just wrote everything out over a week, kind of like how you're supposed to write your first novel. Just write, puke it out, and let the editor sort it out. The original story was 4,000 words, give or take, and I think the final version was 26 words. I just counted. There wasn't much debate about the content. I trusted Suzanne's instincts when it came to the structure. I had to really dig in to remember details about the dirty apartment, how I felt, because the whole thing about the downloaded character from the internet, not so much fiction. Luckily, there's a lot of material from which to glean these details that I personally did not remember. I have a notebook from friends and visitors at the hospital, and I encouraged friends to write letters, and even Gina, who I broke up with 6 months after getting out, complied, and hey, I'm not here if she doesn't take me to Emory, so thank you, Gina, wherever you are. I'm pretty sure this experience broke my parents down into tiny pieces, and they've put together themselves as best they can. I can never say thank you enough, although I was more than ready for them to move out of my 2-bedroom apartment in October after they both drove down in August. Thanks to Allison Law for being Allison Law and getting me into this storytelling class. Shannon Turner for being a great leader of the class and introducing me to Suzanne Van Atten, who steered me through the process. So if you want to support this show, be like Bobby, Hugh, Teody, Larry, Daryl, and the other Daryl, and go to patreon.com/Zachrilege. Follow me on Twitter, like the Zachrilege Cast page on Facebook, send all mail to zachrilege.cast@gmail.com. Thanks to the guest tonight, me, for not dying, because otherwise this would have been even odder. In the next few days and weeks, I expect to see Star Patreon and Conspiracy Buff Jeannie for a breakdown of the RFK Tapes podcast, a chat with Jen and Shay from Waiting for Wrath, congrats on 200 episodes, and Eliza McAdoo, who goes by Your Majesty and has an incredible tale from behind the scenes of tithing in black churches. And oh yeah, Aaron fucking Ra. Good night, and good night.